Thank you and welcome to the Fox C6 Service Center. The Fox School District gracious to host this event and allow this to take place today. My name is Matt West. I work at 1400 AM. Jefferson County does have a news talk radio station, and that's where I'm at, and I've gotten to know a lot of the officials here today, and it's been my pleasure to get to know them. I get to introduce a few of them. But first, the first person on the agenda is the superintendent of the Fox C6 School District, Dr. Diane Brown.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Fox School District. This is a very special day for us, welcoming Miss First Lady Rosalynn Carter to our campus and our community. It's our pleasure to host this and partner with ComTree. And to begin with, I'd like to introduce a few of my staff and my Board of Education. This morning we have here President, and if you please stand, Cheryl Herman, President of our school board. Two of our directors are here, Dan Smith and Pete Nicholas. We certainly wouldn't be sitting in this great place or have the wonderful school district if we didn't have the leadership of our school board members. In addition, some of my staff are here. If you'll just hold your applause, I'll introduce all of them. I have Deputy Superintendent Dr. Stricker, Lorenzo Rizzi, Tim Crutchley, Todd Scott, Dan Baker, and Lisa Cummings. If you're not aware, the Fox School District has had the pleasure of hosting numerous dignitaries, including President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden. We're honored to continue to be a point of contact in the community between national issues and local response. We're all impacted by mental health concerns as parents, family members, friends, and community members. In our district, we try to create an environment where good mental health is encouraged, taught, and practiced. We partner with several organizations, including ComTree, for services for our students. Thank you again, and we hope you'll find Ms. Carter's information regarding eliminating the stigma surrounding mental health issues for our children and our adults, and the improvement and access to services challenging and motivating. Have a wonderful morning.
I was so glad that she introduced the board members, because now I can put their faces with the signs I see throughout my neighborhood. So it kind of helps me that way. And it's interesting, she carries it so easily, but she actually, and the board members, have such a tremendous responsibility. Fox School District itself has something like 11,000 students and 16 attendance centers. And it's funny because for me, the Fox School District is Mrs. Toma's 6th grade class at Sherwood Elementary, where my son goes. I mean, that, I don't have to worry about budget issues and all that other kind of stuff. Our next speaker actually served on the Fox School Board, if I'm not mistaken. And as Dr. Brown alluded to, is probably getting used to some big name guests in his local community. Let me introduce the mayor of Arnold, Ron Counts.
Well, first of all, I think it's awesome that the City of Arnold is able to host this event. And on behalf of the City of Arnold, I would like to welcome former First Lady, Mrs. Rosalynn Carter, to the City of Arnold. We consider it an honor and a privilege for her to be our guest. Our small town has been honored with visits of 2 presidents, and now we're graced with the presence of our former First Lady, Ms. Rosalynn Carter. We want to thank you for your timeless work towards understanding and treating mental health issues. We can see the benefits of some of your life's work in our own community through ComTree. As a community which serves its citizens by meeting many of their physical needs, the people of ComTree work to meet the emotional and psychological needs. We know no one more passionate than Mrs. Carter's devotion to the treating of mental health. It is a joy and a pleasure to welcome Mrs. Rosalynn Carter here today as we join together to serve this community's mental health needs. Thank you.
working at a news talk radio station, I get to know a lot of elected officials, and it's interesting to me because I get to kind of follow their careers a little bit. But the next gentleman I'm going to introduce was recently elected our county executive, first person ever elected county executive in Jefferson County. And it's been a pleasure to watch him, because adults usually don't grow, you don't see them develop. Maybe they do over time, but I've never seen a person grow into a position quicker than this next gentleman, who will tell you, he'll be the first to tell you he doesn't know everything, and he'd be the last person to try and strong arm the council or try and impose his will or be some type of dictatorial kind of individual. Very nice gentleman, pleasure to know him, County Executive Ken Waller.
Well, usually this is what everybody tells me when it comes to election time, but Matt, the check's in the mail, buddy. Appreciate that. Couldn't have said it any better. I just appreciate the invitation to be here today. I don't have a lot to say because I think the mayor and Mrs. Brown said as much as needs to be said. I'm just glad I'd be able to hear Mrs. Carter and hear her speak today. I'd like to thank you all gentlemen and ladies for coming today. Thanks to the Fox School District for hosting this great event. I also want to just thank Comtree for all the work that they do in the community. Obviously, they're in Twin City areas or in the Arnold areas, and they do just a wonderful job, and I appreciate them hosting this today. They are truly a leader in the mental health field. If you ever get a chance to come out and see us out in Hillsborough, we have some of our council people here and Director of Administration Steve Stoll. So we're well represented the county today, and we appreciate the invitation, and enjoy yourself today. Thank you.
This last election, there was a strong movement to throw the incumbents out, and I hear her laughing over there. Throw the incumbents out, but a couple individuals who were incumbents and have served the county for so long and so well, voters recognize them as part of the solution and not part of the problem, and that is true for our next speaker. He is State Senator Ryan McKenna of Crystal City.
Morning. First things first, I have one introduction. I'd like to introduce my wife, Angela. If you could stand and do that. She's wearing Valentine's colors today. I spent 6 years in the House of Representatives, over 4 years in the Senate, and I'm just now realizing that I forget to do that all the time, so I try to do that right at the beginning. And in all reality, those of us in public service know that we can only do this job because of our spouses. And thank you, dear. Happy Valentine's Day. I love you. Although this isn't part of my speech, when we came in this morning, those of us that are speaking, we have to sign a release form for them to use it's saying you can use the pictures for whatever. On the date, I asked the lady, what's today's date? But I just wanted to quickly thank Tracy Weeking for asking me to be here today. Comtree does an outstanding job, not only for mental health issues, but for substance and alcohol abuse, family counseling, and a multitude of things. Thank God for Dr. Huss, his staff, the board of directors at Comtree. Just a few thoughts about Mrs. Carter. As has been said, what a tremendous honor it is for our county to have the former First Lady here. Most people know the impact that Jimmy Carter had on our world as president, as an advocate for civil rights, a lifetime advocate for civil rights, an advocate for diplomacy around the world. He is a deeply religious man, and I believe his most important impact on our world is as an advocate for human rights. All of these things earned him the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002, and one of the quotes I enjoy most from him say this: "If the misery of others leaves you indifferent and with no feeling of sorrow, then you cannot be called a human being." As I began today talking about my wife Angela and how I could not do this job without her, President Carter would tell you the same about Rosalynn. She has been an equal champion for all those issues. They both earned the Presidential Medal of Honor, which is our nation's highest civilian medal that can be issued to anybody. They were both early supporters of Habitat for Humanity. The award, when you Google Mrs. Carter, the awards, the honors, and even all the honorary degrees are too many to mention, but through it all, she has maintained committed to mental health issues and promoting that cause. What a great honor it is again to be here today and for me to be able to talk. And kind of as an aside, my wife has another job. She has to earn money, so she's probably going to leave, so she's not being rude. And I also have a committee hearing in Jeff City at 1:30, so if I leave, that's where I'm going. Quickly, I'd like to introduce my colleague in the House of Representatives, Ron Casey. Thank you for being here, and best wishes to all for a productive, fulfilling day. God bless. Thank you.
It is my understanding that she will be arriving shortly, which is really good because I have her book and I was just going to read from it until, she didn't show up. I did crack it open and it is English and it's, well formatted and it is digestible and it's a lot of really good information. I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. If you're curious why I'm the person standing up here, it probably has something to do with the radio station, KJFF, our relationship with Comtree. In fact, their Assistant CEO, Tracy Wicking, who you've seen up here, does a show with us twice a month, second and fourth Mondays at 10:30, and talks about mental health issues, and just does a great job of bringing it home. And I've told him before, kind of as a joke, I told him, this is fantastic because mental health is my hobby. And I'm not sure he kind of laughed but didn't know how to take that. But I was kind of serious in the sense that it's not my profession. I don't work in the mental health field. Yet, we all can gain so much by learning about these issues. And sometimes you learn a little bit and all of a sudden you feel blessed to be in the condition you're in. And I think that's fantastic. And you gotta be careful what you wish for, though. I remember seeing the special on 60 Minutes where there was a group of people who had a superior memory, which to me just sounds phenomenal. It was just, they could remember virtually every day of their lives since they were about 12 years old. And they started talking to these people. And when I say remember, they could say to one of these people, the year 2000, January and February, which days did it rain? And they could give you the answer. I mean, phenomenal memory. But on the other hand, I was thinking to myself, I don't think I want it quite that good. I think having some of the memories fade a little bit would be okay by me. And that's why we always laugh about the family vacations that were just horrific as a kid, in the back of the station wagon or whatever, and we laugh about them now because we just remember the good or fun stuff. You don't remember all the pain. But it is certainly a tremendous field, and I congratulate everybody who's involved with it, and those people who work so hard to make the quality of lives for people in our county better. My hat's off to you, because I don't know that I would have the patience, the tolerance, the understanding, the sympathy, the empathy, the needed requirements to make a difference in someone's life who is having these types of issues, whether you're talking about addiction or dementia and anything in between. It is a tremendous field, and I'm really proud to know the people of Comtree who have such a well-regarded organization and well-regarded programs. And what I mean by that is they're recognized outside of the county. People ask from St. Louis or St. Louis County or other areas, they ask Comtree, can you tell us about how to run this program, or is it possible you can do this program for us in our area? And they're so interdimensional, and they work so well with so many other departments within Jefferson County to put their programs together. and again, increase to the best possible, the situation that people find themselves in. And again, hats off to, let's just do that real fast. Let's just congratulate everybody who works in the mental health profession to make lives better for individuals in our county. And I know that these issues are often ones, and one of the speakers kind of referenced it. There's certain stigma attached or something like that, but we have come a long way to erasing that. And I just the other night saw Winter's Bone, which is really kind of a scary film in a lot of respects. And one of the people in it, the mother in this family, had some type of mental health issue, and the daughter was basically running the family. And your heart kind of goes out to him, because these family members, who's ever available, were really there to provide her with whatever care she needed. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking about, boy, if she was here, if she was in Jefferson County, she could get the diagnostics she needs, perhaps the counseling she needs, and she would be in a better place, which would remove so much of the burden from the family members required that are caring for her. And it just kind of crossed my mind that, again, it could be a lot better. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome to the Fox C6 Service Center former First Lady, Rosalynn Carter. Pleasure to turn this over to the CEO of Comtree. Please welcome Dr. Stephen Huss.
Well, good morning, friends. What an exciting day this is today. Mental health is not something that you usually think will fill a room, and yet we appear to be doing that today. And of course, most of that is because of our guest that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. But we have a distinguished group of people here in the room, and Mrs. Carter has been able to, I think, touch base with most of you. I certainly hope so. She's been very gracious and been able to go around to the tables as well. I think graciousness is her middle name, so it's quite a Southern lady. At this time, Russ Carnahan was going to be here and was not able to come. There are a few things going on, it appears, in Washington, D.C. these days. And so he was unfortunately unable to do so. But we do have Jim McHugh, his district manager, who would like to say a word or two.
Good morning. On behalf of Congressman Carnahan, Mrs. Carter, welcome to the 3rd Congressional District of the state of Missouri. Just a few words I know that the Congressman would like me to say. First of all, when Russ Carnahan was growing up, Gene and Mel Carnahan, as you well know, were great and strong supporters of the issue you care about, mental health. It's an issue that, thanks to you, has come out of the shadows, and today we could talk about it publicly. And all of us in this room have experienced that with one family member of another, and the Congressman would like to thank you for your unselfish work in this area. And also he wanted to let you know that in November of 1976, he cast his first vote for president for Jimmy Carter when he was a freshman at the University of Missouri. Again, welcome to Missouri, and thank you for everything you've done for our nation.
It is extremely a pleasure to be able to introduce Mrs. Rosalynn Carter to this group. mental health, as I said, is one of those topics that used to be placed into the closets. People used to be very reluctant to even mention mental illness or substance abuse or behaviorally disordered. All of those things were attached to some kinds of stigma. They were dealt with in the shadows. And one of the most important things that we have seen is when people like Mrs. Carter come out and explain what the issues are, that this helps the lives of so many different people. Comtree has been serving the mentally ill since 1974 in Jefferson County and parts of South St. Louis County in both substance abuse and in mental illness. And the area of stigma is one of the most important concerns that we have. When we try to deal with this issue, it is so frustrating for people to recognize or not recognize that mental illness is just like any other illness. Now, luckily, we're beginning to see new treatments. We're beginning to see new medications, and we're seeing extremely positive successes in what we now call recovery. And the term recovery was not even used in the mental health field until the recent few years. So when we have someone like Mrs. Carter who has written this wonderful book, and I hope you will all take and read and pay attention to, she talks about mental illness recovery being within our reach. And it really is, as long as we have people like Rosalynn Carter to be able to speak to it. Mrs. Carter.
I'm trying to decide whether this is too high for me. Thank you, Steve, for that introduction and for the things you had to say about mental illnesses. Maybe I better get down. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? If I talk like this, if I stand up this high?
Try that.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Can everybody hear me? Good. Look skeptical. Well, I want to thank Steve and I want to thank this school for supporting and working with Comtree. I've been with Deborah today and this morning, and she met me last night. Had a tour this morning, which was really wonderful. Comtree is doing great things, and I am most envious. I wish we had a Comtree like this in my hometown. But I have great admiration for what they're doing, and I want to thank the audience, because to have this many people come to a mental health meeting is really special. And so I'm just deeply grateful to you. And to me, this seems like Steve told me this morning that the community was involved with Comtree, and it seems like you are just a wonderful community to be interested in and caring about people who are living with mental illnesses. And so I just thank you for inviting me to be here. I think Deborah had the first idea. She wrote me a letter. So, well, to get to my remarks, how did you like the Georgia weather I brought you? It's been great. I've been reading all of this about the bad weather to get here, and it's just Georgia weather. Well, I have worked. I'm losing my voice this morning. Been talking a lot. I've been working on mental health issues for a very long time. In fact, for exactly 40 years. I began when Jimmy was governor. He was inaugurated January of 1971. This is 2011, and so it's been exactly 40 years. And if you can believe it, I got up the nerve to be on the Daily Show. I told Jon Stewart I'd been working on mental health issues for 40 years. He said, "You failed." And I should have told him, well, I think I said, I know I failed, but what I should have told him was, I haven't quit. I became involved in campaigning for my husband for governor. This was 1966, I think. He ran once before he was elected and lost before he was elected. Got in just, I think, 8 weeks before the election because our leading Democratic candidate had a heart attack. And we had Lester Maddox, big segregationist, who had a restaurant with a pig handle, daring anybody, African American, to come in. He was our only Democratic candidate left. Jimmy was in the state Senate. He went to Atlanta to see who was going to run against him, and nobody was going to run against him. You'll have to remember this was in the 60s, and he was very popular. And Jimmy said, somebody has to run against him. And so, of course, I didn't know we went to Atlanta, and I was keeping our books in our office, walking home, right by Jimmy's mother's house. It's not very far. And she said, she called me. She saw me, and she said, "Come in. I have something to tell." Jimmy's on the telephone. And so I went in, and he said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, you better pull up a chair because I'm running for governor." Well, we had not. He had been in politics because he was in the state senate, but it was a shock. And so we just got in cars and started riding and stopping and talking to people. I went one way, he went another way. And we had 2 sons who were old enough to drive, and they each went a different way, just like we did in campaigning for president. And every day, I had people asking me what they were going to do about their loved one at a big Central State Hospital, mental health institution. And it was every day. And this was a time when the community mental health centers had been passed and calling for people to be moved out of institutions into the community centers. Well, the community centers, it was passed in '63, I think, and the centers had not been built, but they were moving people out. I think I might have to get down because I keep hitting that. Okay. This is better, and maybe you can hear me a lot better too.
Yes.
Well, every day I met somebody, and I knew nothing about mental illness, nothing about the subject. But I became really concerned about what was happening. And one day I was campaigning at a cotton mill in Atlanta, 4:30 in the morning. It's a great place to campaign. You have people coming off from work, and then the shift coming on work. And I was standing outside the gate all by myself, and this woman came out. The first one that came out was a little woman. You could tell she was weary from working all night long. She had limp all of her hair and her clothes. And so when she got to me, I said, "I hope you're going home and be able to get some sleep." And she said, "I hope I can too." And then she told me about having a mentally ill daughter at home. And she said with her husband's salary alone, they couldn't make ends meet and take care of the daughter. So she worked at night when he was at home, and she took care of the girl in the daytime while he worked. Well, that woman haunted me all day. I kept thinking, suppose she gets home and the daughter's awake. Is she going to be able to get any rest and then go back to work tonight? Well, I was campaigning in a town and found out that Jimmy was coming there that night to a big rally. This was a disorganized campaign because we had just gotten into it. I had never campaigned before. But anyway, I stayed in that town and got in the back of the line. It was a huge crowd because it was close to the election. I got in the back of the line. He didn't know I was there. And I don't know about you, but receiving lines are part of my life. And you will be talking to somebody, holding their hand, and reach for the next person. Well, he reached for me before he saw me. And when I got in front of him, he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I came to see what you're going to do for people with mental illnesses when you're governor of Georgia." And he said, "I'm going to put you in charge of it, and we're going to have the best program in the country." Well, he didn't put me in charge of it, of course. He didn't win the election. We lost to Lester Maddox, who was our governor for 4 years. But then he won the next time. He created the Governor's Commission to improve services to mentally and emotionally handicapped. And he appointed me to that commission. And that was the beginning of my education about mental illnesses. And I have been working on the issues ever since. In the White House, I had a President's Commission on Mental Health. We worked really hard for 4 years, toured the country having meetings, holding hearings of people who were mostly caring for those with mental illnesses, and developed legislation in 4 years. And got it funded. That's really something special because it takes time. Well, in October of 1980, it was passed and funded. In November of 1980, Jim, as he says, was involuntarily retired from the White House. And we came home. And the next president abandoned my legislation. It was even funded. He put it on the shelf and it never took place. It was not a perfect bill, but it could have made a significant difference in all of these years since. It's one of the biggest disappointments of my life. And even more distressing, I don't know whether it could be more distressing, but even as distressing, is the fact that 25 years later, a second president had a President's Commission, second President Bush had a President's Commission on mental health. This was the announcement from that commission, that the mental health system in our country is in shambles. There is no way to fix it. We have to start over and transform the system. And when we looked at the recommendations, we were shocked to see almost all of them were the same recommendations I had in my bill 25 years earlier. Like getting more mental health professionals. We have a dearth of mental health. We need them so much in there. The health care bill has provisions for getting mental health professionals, incentives for getting more people to go into mental health professionals. So, but just going down the list, it was just so distressing to see that so little has been done. It's tragic to me that has happened because we've learned so much about the brain. That one thing that Jimmy did, put millions of dollars into research for mental illnesses, and it sat there for a while. And when the first President Bush came into office, was the United Nations Year of the Brain, the decade of the brain. And President Bush put a lot more money into research. So we have learned so much. We know what to do, and we don't do it. It's tragic. We'll have a really good program at the Carter Center. We began it soon after we left the White House. We focus on stigma. We have a lot of initiatives to try to overcome stigma. We haven't been very successful, but neither has the country. We focus on stigma, and we work to influence policy. And I have an annual symposium every year with leading experts in the field who come, and have a wonderful task force that guides our work. It's a good program. On stigma, to go back to stigma, the University of Indiana and Columbia University, my Carter Center program works with Columbia University, because we have fellowships for mental health journalists, journalism, and get journalists to come in and explain to them the language, things that people say hurt those with mental illnesses. Some things, if you say the mental illness, the mentally ill person, she or he is not a mentally ill person. She's a person like you are and like I am, who has hopes and dreams, but she is a person with mental illness. You don't call somebody a cancer person, a heart person, because they have an illness. So the things like that that make a lot of difference to people with mental illnesses. And we had over 108, I think the last count was, journalists who've been through our program, from the best publications and television programs and so forth. But when I began to tell you about the Columbia University and the University of Indiana, they did a poll to see what people thought about stigma. And what they found was that it's beginning to lift a little bit on depression and anxiety disorders. But on major illnesses, schizophrenia, bipolar, major depression, it has not moved at all. They said, as a matter of fact, in some places, sometimes, some of it is getting worse. We have always thought that if we said people with mental illness are just like other people that have heart disease or something, that if they saw that and if we could educate them about it, the stigma would go away, or fade. And what this study did was to show that when people learn that it's something with the brain, it's a disorder and something, it frightens them. And the fear factor is what has kept the stigma going, because so many people think that everybody who has a mental illness is, Jimmy said the other day we'd call them terrorists, but it's not terrorists. But they think that they are violent, and they're going to be violent any minute. What they don't know is that people with mental illnesses are more likely to be victims of violence than to be perpetrators. And if you have, when you read these stories about Tucson, or is it Virginia, almost, any situation like that, almost without exception, it's somebody the mental health system failed. And people with mental illnesses are 4 times more likely to be victims of violence than the average person walking down the street. An average person is, I think, the violent incidents that happen to people in the general public are 3.7%, and with mental illnesses, those with mental illnesses is 4.5 or 5%. Very little difference. And so we need to turn that upside down. People live with mental illnesses, have good lives, and are not violent. Well, I have the themes of my book. I wrote my book because I wrote one in the late 1990s, and I was going to update it. Everybody kept, my task force and others kept asking me to update it. Well, I got it out and looked at it, and I think everything has changed since I wrote the other book. And I realized I had to do a new one. So the themes of the book, and the overarching theme is recovery. Recovery. The overwhelming majority of people with mental illnesses, even the major mental illnesses, can recover and lead normal, fulfilling lives in their, well, they might not be normal because they're like somebody else with heart problem. They might have to take their medicine, or with high blood pressure, with diabetes, but they can live meaningful, productive lives in the community. And that has been recent. Even when we did our commission in 1978, nobody dreamed that people could ever recover. And now it's a fact, which it's the greatest accomplishment, biggest thing that's happened in the last 40 years. since I've been involved. In fact, I think it's the biggest thing that has ever happened. I to know that people can recover. Prevalence, mental is the next thing. Mental illness affect all of us. They touch every single family. If not an immediate person in the family, then a close friend. Why is stigma still so bad? That's hard for me to understand. 1 in 4 Americans are diagnosed with a mental illness every year. 1 in 4. So look at people in this room, 1 in 4 probably has a mental illness. Living with it, leading meaningful, productive lives. Stigma is the greatest barrier to even seeking care by individuals. They don't want to go to a mental health person because they don't want to be labeled mentally ill. And it's the greatest barrier to the advancement in our field because people don't come. It curtails funding for programs. It embarrasses and humiliates and leads to discrimination and prejudice in almost every area, housing, employment, and so forth. Prevention, can you believe that we are now working on prevention and early intervention? We have learned that mental illnesses are developmental illnesses. And I want every single mother, every married mother think about how that sounded. I want every mother to know that to watch the baby carefully, how it bonds with its parents, whether or not he or she matches the guidelines, the right time to walk or to crawl or to turn over and so forth. How that child, that baby interacts with playmates in nursery school and on up through school. Watch them carefully. If any deviation, take them to a doctor. Take them to a mental health professional. I dream, it'll be a long time before people do that, but I dream of the day when we take babies to the well baby clinic for a health checkup, and take them also to a mental health professional for a well baby checkup. And not because the baby has mental illness, but just to have a checkup to be sure everything is all right with any kind of health issue. It'll be a long time before that happens, but I have to dream about it. Mental illness is our nation's largest hidden epidemic and a major public health issue. I hope that my book and I do want you to read it. It's short. I write like I'm talking to my mother, which is in plain language. I use stories of things of issues that I want to get across. I think it's a good book. And I hope that it will help dispel the myths and misconception about mental illnesses that cause so many to keep their problems hidden and hinder all our efforts to help them. Much of the progress that we have made is due to consumers, people living with mental illnesses. Recovered consumers working with those who have not recovered, those who are suffering from mental illnesses. And in my book, I highlight some of those in the early consumer movement. There was a woman who wrote a book in 1978, Own Our Own. And she was a consumer. She had mental illness. She'd had bad experiences with the mental health system. And so this book talks about how consumers ought to be able to have some say-so in their treatment. She started talking to other consumers. 2 of them I know. And 2 of them, one is on my mental health task force in that early group. One is an advisor to my program. And they were in that first group, and they started talking and bringing in others. They started they found out that if they had somebody who was really sick, really suffering, that they could tell them, they could talk to them and say, I know what you're going through, and look, I'm recovered. And you can't imagine the impact it made. It gives them hope. They think they can get better, so they get better. And it's just, to me, a miracle, because I have seen it. And one of the persons on my mental health task force was he had schizophrenia. He said he was totally out of it for 8 years, on his back most of the time, in the hospital, and then he went to group homes and so forth. He was the first person in Alabama to start a consumer program in the state government. The other one, who is the advisor to my program, suffered from bipolar disorder. He said he thought God was telling him some unbelievable things to do, and he tried to do them. He lost his job, he lost his wife, and for 7 years. Before he started realizing that what this book said worked. And he decided to start taking his lithium and went back. It was not long before he was back working. And he said he went one day to a meeting where they were going to, in Atlanta, where they were going to decide a place to put a group home for people with mental illnesses. And he said they started talking. He got so mad with them. It's like, not in my backyard. Nobody wanted it. He said the stigma was so bad that he finally just blurted out, I am living with bipolar, and I'm a good person, and I have a job. I'm a newspaper reporter, and I write, and I have columns in the paper. He said he got really mad with him. About 2 or 3 months after that, the state office called and asked him if he would start a consumer program in the state government. And he did. And then he was able to get consumers. We now have over 500 peer support specialists, consumers who have recovered in our government now. And he was able to get them Medicaid to pay them. And he said, you cannot imagine what it does to somebody who has always had low self-esteem, thinking, and they have stigma against themselves. They don't think they're worth anything. And he said, of course, you go through that and you recover, but he said, Medicaid does not pay anybody who is not capable, and that just helps them more than anything. And so you can see, I've been so close to the movement. We had this woman appear at one of the hearings of our mental health task force, our President's Commission, when Jim was president in 1978. And so I've been close to the movement from the very beginning. These consumers have led a revolution, one which recognizes that consumers can and must play a role in their own recovery. For far too long, they and others like them, others living with mental illnesses, were told their cases were hopeless, that they had no chance to live a meaningful life. The message is devastating and destructive, offering only despair. Well, today, all of that's changing. Hope for a better life, strength-based, building on a person's strength and not their illness. We all have strengths, and so do people living with mental illness. Strength based on self-awareness and respect form the foundation for a new way of thinking about living with mental illnesses. I believe we are on the verge of a breakthrough in the mental health field. Recognizing that recovery is possible, and every day we're learning more and more about prevention and early interventions, which can reduce the risk and severity of mental illnesses, especially in children. If you can catch it early, you can sometimes prevent it from an episode from happening again. And there's a lot of research going on like that, because it's not easy to recognize mental illness, but there are things happening now. There's a woman at Emory University who's working on that, and she's taken pictures of people with major mental illnesses when they were babies, and she said you can kind of tell. She said a mother would never say, oh, my baby's mentally ill, but she said sometimes you can tell that when they start to crawl, so the hands splay out a little bit. Anyway, she's one with many others in our country now, working on trying to find the interventions, trying to find the symptoms so they can intervene early. And early intervention always mitigates the effects of mental illness. We can even sometimes even never have a major episode. Well, now our challenge is to make up for the decades of neglect, inattention, and discrimination those with mental illnesses have endured. To me, the way we treat those with mental illnesses is a moral issue. To neglect those who, through no fault of their own, are in need runs counter to the values of decency and equality that we hold dear. Today, with our knowledge and expertise, we have a great opportunity to change things forever for all people with mental illnesses, to move forward to an era of understanding, care, and respect. It is within our reach.
Now Dr. Huss is going to lead us as we present Mrs. Carter with a token of our appreciation.
I'd like for Mark Mertens and Kathy Ellis from the ComTree Board to come up here. And we have a special gift we'd like to present to you, if you would mind. Now I'll turn this over to Mark.
Mrs. Carter, thank you very much for your kind words. It was very touching. As you stated, 1 in 4 have someone in their family that has a mental illness, and I too have had that problem in our family. And your words made me think back about a certain brother-in-law that I lost to mental illness. But on behalf of all the people here today, especially on behalf of the board and on the staff of ComTree, we'd like to present to you a small token of our appreciation, if we could.
Mrs. Carter, first of all, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. As you know, I'm also on the board. And I've been doing that for over 30 years, and I've had a great privilege in doing that. We're very honored to have you visit ComTree in Jefferson County, and to commemorate this event, we would like to present you with this heirloom quilt. Quilts date back to ancient Egypt with notable cultural variations from African American, Hawaiian, and Amish traditions. Stories have been passed down from generation to generation about how quilts were used to guide the way to freedom on the Underground Railroad. Quilts stir memories of fabrics and designs that are connected to past generations. The creativity in each design stirs our imagination and at the same time connects us to comfort and history. We wanted this gift to represent the collaboration between ComTree and the Carter Center. In the center of the quilt is our Tree of Life ComTree logo with hands reaching up for help and then out to the world. The Carter Center eagles and stars form the border of the quilt. I would like to ask Mary Pat Monterubio to stand. Mary Pat is a master quilter and landscape designer, as well as the regent of the St. Louis Jefferson chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Mary Pat listened to our ideas and transformed them into the design that we see here today. The inscription on the back of the quilt says, "We present this within our reach quilt with gratitude to Mrs. Rosalynn Carter on February 14, 2011. Thank you for your dedication in helping the most vulnerable."
hang it at the Carter Center, but can I put it in my office? Maybe I'll put it on the door right outside so everybody can see it. And it's really special to me because they told me about this hands this morning at Comtree and how they'll have to tell you about it. Because it means a lot to me, and I thank you very much. It'll remind me of this wonderful day and this great community. I've had such a great visit. Thank you.